Get started. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has approved a directive to slash the size of official delegations for foreign and domestic trips by 60% in a major cost-cutting move. The presidential spokesperson, Ajurin Gelale, told State House correspondents about this on Tuesday at the presidential villa in Abuja. The new limit, he says, will affect travel by the president, vice president, first lady, and other top officials. Now, let's quickly move into our first interview, talking about President Tinubu's travel policy as well as some other issues that have been trending and source for concern. My guest is joining me right now, Dr. Sam Amadi, who was the former chairman and the CEO of NEC. Good morning, Dr. Amadi, and thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you, and good morning, Nancy.
Now, good morning to you. Let me get your own assessment of the announcement yesterday by the president. Is it a welcome development? Do you see this president as a listening president? Because we know what happened in the last few weeks, precisely in December, when there was a lot of furore around the delegation to Dubai for the climate summit, even though the presidency said we came up with 422 people as against the number that was bantered in the media. So is this a welcome development for you? Very briefly, Doctor, because we have a lot to cover.
Well, I think it's, yes, it is. But again, this is probably a smart action by the president, smart thinking. I wouldn't say it's politically helpful. He has to take advantage of this crisis to reshape himself and deflect these dangerous on several media reports. So he acted smart by listening, quote unquote, and putting up these good optics. And hopefully, let's hope that there's more substance than optics today.
Now, I like the way you put that, really more substance, because when I heard about that yesterday, I also tried to put substance to it. And of course, this is a money program. And I went back to take a look at the president's budget for 2024, of course, an approval of about 28 trillion naira for this year. Even in November, was it November or December, while the president was presenting about 27 trillion to the National Assembly, or when they were trying to put it together at the FEC, I realized that about 8 billion naira will be spent by the president and the vice president this year for both local and foreign trips. So when he came up with this announcement yesterday, and I know that the budget has also been jacked, I was a bit torn between if this would translate to that cost cutting. And in my own, from my perspective, I'm not seeing that, or I don't know, but you speak to me about it.
I think that's a point to travel from. It sounds like an afterthought. For example, I think the latest budget for travel for the presidency is about 10 billion. So the question then is, how does this line up with this commitment? This is afterthought, clearly. First, cost of governance has three components related to foreign trips. One is extra code expenditures that go with it. Second is the number of persons. So X units times 10 is more than X units times 2. So that's the personnel side. The third aspect of it is frequency. What do you travel? What do you travel for? And then class of travel. Under Obasanjo, Ufot Kaita's to government put out a public, general circular that all persons nobody should travel first class, ministers of business class, occasional, and then other people on economy or economy plus. I can tell you when I was NEC chairman, that was flouted. And the first experience I had was I was asked to travel and I brought say first class approval. I said never. We became the only agents that never flew first class at all. Again, if you look at the difference between first class and economy, then it was about $1 million plus in some routes in Asia, America, Europe. So the first thing is not just about saying only 10 to 25 people travel. It's also about what is the cost of travel. Look at all those costs put together. Second, like I said, very important, is there a structure to verify what needs to travel for? So if you look at some of the presidential trips, some of the ministerial or senior advisors trip to the country, there are events where they have no marginal role. They're basically going to be participants, they sit in the meetings. That's not how high public officials spend executive time. So there's also a cost component to waste of executive time, and also a cost component to trips that are totally not necessary. So the president should go further to structure what should people travel for? What's a clearance for travel? How do we establish who needs to go here? So still a lot of work to be done. And very important now is you have to align this newfound zeal for cutting costs across board. Go back, even though the budget has been passed, the budget need not be funded. And government has a way also of going back to say, look, the environment, some of those money dedicated for travel has to be, put back to human development, capacity building, increase the education loan fund, those things that really build back to or build up to productivity. So we want to see structured, aligned, comprehensive, cutting that suggests not just that this is just an optical response to what is now becoming like a scandal. So the brand is taking advantage of this to look better, but then we demand substance, want to see structure. Again, monitoring. It's enough to say, Nguleri or whoever, who's that the statement, where are we monitoring ministers, how many people did they travel? And if we monitor them, would this constitute infringement, misconduct that will lead somebody losing their job? So you have to tighten, put a structure and a sanction around it, and then the monitoring framework. So that even helps.
Okay, doctor, let's still stick a bit with the cost, because that is actually the issue. If the president issues a directive or give us a travel policy, limiting himself to the number of people that can travel, I hope we'll also come to that if time permits, as to who are the number, we've gotten the number, but who are the people that constitutes the 20? That's another issue. Among that 20 also, 20 seems to be a maximum limit. So the president can actually travel with 1 to 20, or 20 being the maximum limit. That's an issue that we'll discuss later if we have the time, but I just needed to drop that. This other question, it's around the issue of the cost of governance. Does this really translate into the issue of the cost of governance? Because I see a lot of people say, this is cutting the cost of governance. Is it really about cutting the cost of governance? In what way will this impact it? Secondly, if the president is also saying that 20 people for him, for outside travels and all of that, with what our viewers have seen on our screen earlier, does this also mean, or how can we also get the full brief? Bearing in mind, for example, when President Jonathan was there, he banned his ministers from taking first class. And we know how much first class is. So if, for example, that these same people are to travel with the president and they are to go on first class, we know how much first class is. So it's still going to be an upward adjustment of price. I hope, doctor, of course, you should know what I'm talking about. So it's not just about just coming out. It's about looking at the content and how much it will translate to. Because you can say, okay, absolutely, 20 people are going with me. For example, let them go with first class. As against some people go business and some people go economy. You understand what I mean? So at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. Yes.
So I totally agree with you. So the point then, like I said, is about cost. So let's get to the content. Why should any public officer fly first class? It's no. That's why it was banned. It still remains banned, but they're flying it. So if you bring back that ban and say, no first class travel. Most people will travel economy, business, or economy plus for small distances. I mean, like London, 6 hours, okay? There must be some rational policy, and those policies must be written out and served to the public. That's a good point. But secondly is, who can travel? Let me tell you, 20 people traveling in many instances is still a lot. Except like events like ONGA, where the president has probably a lot of side meetings and maybe ex-officers, section heads who go do briefing might interchange. So President travels to meet Korea, and he moves to the foreign affairs ex-officer for Korea. Then the next meeting is with Ukraine, and there's somebody who manages East Europe, almost different from someone who manages South Europe. So those are the complexities. Again, there may be need to travel with more than 20 in very rare situations, and there may be need to travel with only 5 or 2. So the point is that there must be a philosophy of governance first that shuns ceremony, superfluity, that is functional first. If you focus on functionality, then the numbers go down, the costs go down. Again, if the president travels with private persons who are not public officials, and you are paying extra code and hiring the best hotels for them, I mean, just a good example. A room in the Millennium Hotel in New York, for example, could cover probably the cost of flight of somebody, one person. So if you
Yeah.
put 20 people in that and government bearing the cost, but you're not cutting costs. So it might come down to say, look, we are going to be a country, behave like a country that is poor or want to be rich, like Deng said about China. And then we're going to behave as if these are people who want to be rich or who are poor. And so anybody who goes, this is the level of hotel. Hotels should be the cost we're going to give people. Those who can't do that can go by themselves. And again, this idea of packing, private persons to go for this public official events, the notion of looking for investment is infradig, is proportion, is gone. It's not doesn't make sense. So these are some of the things you have to put in. Government is going to be lean, government is going to be functional. So leanness is not just about number, it's about also how you manage government, business. It to be said, I mean, that I was a foreign affairs advisor. I would travel all over the world. And I can tell you, I went with the president team that went to State House visit in the US. And I know that some of the hotels, we stay in could be extremely expensive.
Expensive.
So the question is,
Yeah.
in some countries stay in other smaller hotels because they know that look, they don't have that carrying capacity like US or China or even the UK. Sometimes they stay in lower hotels than we do. So I think we need to address the philosophy of governance and then the manner, the way government governs. If you look at this government, it has the largest collection of aides, advisors, and sundry individuals who are media people are more than 40. People have different roles to play. It does not show something that is refocused on cutting costs. So let's hope that this is not just optics, that the substance is in it, and therefore we'll see realignment of the real things that matter. Where the red meat is in the layering of government, is in how government is conducted, and what we consume and procure as government.
In fact, when you talked about optics, what also comes to my mind is that even for the president to announce that, I think there is even something existing around the civil service now. For instance, the ministers, if they are supposed to travel, I think even currently they go with about 4 people. So what actually is the difference? Because we know that whenever ministers come in, they come in with their own different aides that are different from the ministry staff, as it were. And the ministry staff, the civil servants there, or public servants, they have clashes with the ministers and all of that. So what has really changed? That is on one part. Then I would like you to also address that other question, which I mentioned earlier, perhaps who will constitute the 20? Because we also know that when a president is traveling, for example, there is always an advance team that goes before the president arrives that country. Is this directive also applying to those people that are statutorily doing their job in terms of perhaps even the NIA people, the security people, even his physician, even the media aides, even the correspondents and all of that? So perhaps do Nigerians need more clarity on that? Then thirdly, Doctor, sorry I'm bombarding you with questions this morning. I just want us to go out very quickly before...
If I miss them, you remind me.
Yes. Then thirdly, it's about, so far, since the president has come into office, I think in May, of course, last year, in the first 100 days, he was in about, himself and the vice president was in about 9 or 10 countries. His first visit was to France in June of last year. And he spent, both Tinubu and Shettima spent about 28 days abroad. Where I'm trying to go to is that in the few months that he's been president, the president has been out of the country for about 91 days and is gone to about 15 or 16 countries. So what does that really mean with this travel policy?
Okay, let me start with who travels the president.
Yeah.
I don't think that this 25 applies to the security service. Of course, the president, before he travels as president, no matter how we try to be functionally prudent, we need to acknowledge that the president is not an individual, an institution, a country. So security people will be there firsthand to watch out, be on ground. So those are obviously not part of the 20. Now the 20 would include, of course, personal aides who go with him and the staffers, the chief of staff office. Again, I think it excludes ministers who travel with their own team. So assuming the president is going for a conference on climate energy, so going with Minister of the Environment, and the Minister of Environment will come with own team. The president comes with presidential staffers. So those 20 will be presidents, people with under the control of the chief of staff, the advisors, personal physician, aides, sometimes cook, they travel with the cooks and all that. So those are the 20 miles. The rest who travel with the president for the ministries or department are not included. So you can discover that even if you travel with 10 people, the entire team might add, assuming it goes with the issues cut across three ministries, and each minister plus four, then that adds to the number. So that's it should be very clear. It doesn't include DGs, good of guard guys who go forward with the president to make sure we are clear. We won't include NIA guys. Some of them are already resident in those countries, undercover in our embassies. When I was in foreign affairs, we know that some are there, some will come. They put on the security advisory that the president receives and relationship between the country. In many countries of the world, the president will be offered, like the US, a full detailed security from the state institution. But nevertheless, there will still be Nigerian security operatives who are there. Again, back to the question around travel. I mean, there's this notion that people say, oh, when I was appointed next chairman, one of my advisors, staffers, told me, he said, look, okay, you don't need to touch your salary. Here, people travel like hell. You go everywhere, you make extra code, you live for your extra code. So travel now develop its own incentive for travel. Of course, I didn't do that. I didn't travel. Everybody knows that Sam doesn't travel that much at all. So, but the point is, these travels do not really create much impact. There are things the president must travel for. Official days, even if a country's inauguration of a new president in Africa ought to be there. But there are things that presidents don't even need to travel. Well, foreign affairs, and it depends on two things. One, the president's own personality impacts. Obasanjo liked traveling. Yar'Adua, incidentally, even though he was mostly sick, he doesn't like to engage the media here. He likes to travel. And when he goes abroad, if you watch, most of his major statements are made with foreign journalists. So some people love traveling. They want to be in the air all the time. They also want to escape the rigor of work. But unfortunately, a third world country, a developing country with a challenge of development, needs executives who sit on the desk. When Chinese president, I think who was, I was in US president in America, and the question was, who is this guy? Nobody knew him. He has not traveled anywhere. So the Americans were trying to piece together his profile. But our own leaders like traveling. They actually prefer being outside. They see themselves that, appearing on conferences, even conferences that low cadre officers are running. I mean, there's a seminar in Washington, in New York, run by asset directors for African affairs. And the Nigerian foreign minister will feel big sitting there, not really being a major contributor, but just sitting there, make a 2 minute comment. That's why he left 5 days of official time to fly to New York. I've always been opposed to those kind of travel. They waste our resources. The opportunity cost of not focusing on solving this problem, receiving briefings from, governance is about sitting down. They have to receive briefings across board. So those times you waste flying for things like frivolous, they don't add. If you look at that cloud, since Obasanjo left, in foreign policy, where I was advisor for some time, we have dwindling and declining cloud. So in spite of attending almost everything under the earth, it has not made Nigeria more influential. There's no impact in foreign space. So it's counterproductive, it's cost inefficient in many ways.
Okay, doctor, the third question, I don't know if you've addressed it, is that of course, the number of days that the president has traveled out of the country and the number of countries. And I'm situating that against another African president, I think, is it the Malawian president now? Is it or is it Zambia? President Hichilema. For example, he did not even go to the COP climate summit. He mentioned that he's not going outside the country anymore for now because that the country is suffering economic crisis. So that is one African president also. So how would you situate that? Then secondly, how can state governors too, should they key into this? Because we're talking with so much focus on the center, which is President Tinubu and his own administration. How about the state governments? Because the state governors are also very culpable, if not even more in this. At the end of the day, we don't even see anything concerning FDI into their states apart from Lagos, Abuja, and what's the next one? Lagos, Abuja, FCT, Lagos, Abuja, and River State. Which Abia, but it's just coming up now. Don't go there. Let's just talk about FG. Now we'll come back.
No, that's it. I agree with you. Let me tell you the truth. In every indicator, the federal government outperforms states in prudence, in accountability, in democracy. The worst place, Nigeria's underdevelopment and poverty is driven by failure at the subnational level. So we're talking about presidents now cutting down. What about state governors? There's no accountability. State governors would even pack relatives and friends and all kinds of comedians and jostlers and fly. Look, at the time in my state, Imo State, one of the governors was actually doing foreign investment in the air everywhere in the world. I recall having a conversation with a former Senate president who told me it was so shameful that in one of those foreign briefings, this state governor was asked to present his economic profile. You know what he told them? I will give you ROI, return on investment of 50%. Which document? Which framework? He said, I will give you visa. I will give you. So the state of play in the state is shameful and shambolic. Actually, we should be talking about it because this is a national economy. You see, the problem is that fiscal federalism, constitutional federalism, creates some level of dissonance and lack of coordination. Each state is fiscally sovereign in a sense. So the federal government shares the national economy to states. The states use it as they like. There was an effort by Okonjo Iweala or OBJ, Passenger, to rein in state use of fiscal resources for the federal. And the Supreme Court said, you can't do it. Since then, there's a disarticulation of the economy. You have one economy. We have several 36 points of spend, and there's no central coherence. Let's use China. The economic development from then, 1978 to today, is because China smartly decentralized or create centralized coherence. So if we don't deal with the idea that some of these prudence measures should cascade, soft law, find a way, presidents should nudge. If a president and a state governor is not aligned to that vision, don't invite him to events. Starve him of exposure. Starve him of some grant. Use grant and aid. Use the power of the president to nudge them towards alignment. Because if you have a federal government that is doing well and the state governments are moving in diversity, the Nigerian economy will not shape up because you need that central coherence. So I totally agree with you that a good president shouldn't just tighten his belt. He should use both persuasion, soft power, soft laws, soft coercion to nudge, and that's the language we use in behavioral economics, nudge states towards aligning themselves. We can't have 36 states basically wasting resources. If you look at the multidimensional poverty index, the issues that trigger, escalate these poverty levels are issues within the domain of local government and states. And so if you don't treat them for local government and state and have fiscal rationality, you basically can't get this country wrong.
Okay. Doctor, let's move over to another issue, which is the probe going on right now in the Humanitarian and Poverty Affairs Ministry. The suspended minister, Dr. Betta Edu, was at the AFCC yesterday, as well as Sadia Farouk Wood, the former minister of that same ministry. What are your views concerning this? What do you think will really come out of this investigation? That's one. Then number two is the issue around the interior minister. We really had a very, a dramatic Monday, as I will put it, because that dramatic Monday consisted of President Tinubu. Now the media team of the president has said is relief, but initially they said sacked, and sacked the CEOs of two agencies, the FCCPC and the BPE, as well as the suspension of Betta Edu. So what do you think about the Interior Minister alleged involvement, of course, in the payments of about 483 million naira to a company which he has come out to say he's no longer a director and all of that? Then the issue about now themed Bettergate. And do you think that there will be a contagion effect on other ministries? That's the third question. The fourth question is, do you think that the ministerial retreat, sorry, doctor, it's just coming to me.
Go ahead.
Do you think that the ministerial retreat really yielded any fruit? Because even after the ministerial retreat, I think a few days, or just the day after, I spoke to Dr. Joe Abba, who is a former DG of BPSR, and he was a facilitator at that retreat. So he told me, oh, Nancy, these are the things we discussed, that even the president was like, they should carry on the first day, I think, till 8 p.m. and all of that. So when I saw this, I started asking questions around public financial management, if these ministers understand it. And number 4, 5 now, is the role of permanent secretaries in all of this. Because the permanent secretaries in these ministries are like the chief accounting officers, and most of the buck stops on their table, as it were, in terms of administrative head. Shoot, doctor.
Okay, so that's very loaded questions, but very important. But let me start a little bit academic.
Yeah.
There was a paper issued by Kennedy School of Government years ago. My professor, when I was in grade school, despite to social carpenter, Michael Woolcock, Lance Pritchett, and Richard Andrew. It's called Looking Like a State. An argument I take there, they talk about why it's difficult to implement reform across developing countries. They came up with a concept they called isomorphic mimicry. And that is where you get institutions, they mimic the just institution. Okay, there's some audit office of the Auditor General. You create auditor. The auditor doesn't care about audits, but the office is there. The rules are there. But the underlying functionality is not there. There's no auditing, but it has its name audit. So there's a retreat called Retreat for Government Officials to train them to change the mind, change management retreat. But nobody cares about change. Everybody in that room knows they're appointed because of the investment, the campaign, ownership of the president. The body language is very clear for them. This is business as usual. So those retreats, sorry to say, basic waste because of isomorphic mimicry. They're just mimicking the idea of retreat. They didn't go there with a sense to be changed or to change. That's one aspect of it. Second aspect of it is presidential government is about the executive president, section 5. If the president, and this president came into power with a lot of humbling stories and things, maybe now he can reinvent himself. So I don't think that the people who got on board are persons who really understood or felt like, look, we are going here to serve, not to serve ourselves. Think around the Minister of FCT, the Secretary to Government, their pedigree, not that they are criminals or bad people, but generally, these are not shining lights of what you might call competent, prudent, honest, frugal leadership. So in staffing his office, the chief of staff himself inclusive, the president did not give out signal, that's false signaling or no signaling that is business unusual again. So that's the second point to go. So what we are seeing here are actually logical outcome of a system set up to be this way. I mean, in the world, why should the nice person, good person, be the Minister for Material Services? Is it because of skill sets, experience? This is a ministry that should drive poverty. And if you look at language, the things she has been saying and what she has been doing since then, and all the videos trending now, you can basically say that this is maybe a reward, maybe a plan. And I've said it. These ministries are slush funds. Those who create them purposely did so. There are many ways to deal with poverty. One of them is clear budget. Look at the budget this year. Does it tell you of a commitment towards ending poverty in terms of sectoral allocations, building park with 6 billion or 5 billion for car park, building libraries, stocking libraries with billions, and not providing even for any other things that the poor can access? Look at policy. What policy have we developed that will mainstream the poor faster in service delivery? There are clear policy framework to drive down poverty. The Oxfam did a big study some years ago and made it very clear that what drives poverty in Nigeria, three things. First, it says their budget does not reflect.
Yeah.
Yes. Two, they said you have very poor labor protection. And anybody who studies labor economics, Nigeria has no protection for workers, no protection for people who are involved in this low-level work. Three, they said that you don't have effective remedies for social economic violation. So have you dealt with these things and solved them to drive up poverty? The first thing Buhari did, he gave this agency, brought a woman that people, all kinds of stories around her, made her, that woman is straight to EFCC. Tinubu come, did the same thing. So the point is, now back to the issue of Minister of Environment.
Interior. Yes.
Look, I've gone to the story. That's palpable, clear conflict of interest. You can't first, yes, he's only a director. What is a company on? The first question is, what procurement policy, if you do procurement, and I did a lot myself, the first thing is you're going to know the companies who provide their profile, so you know who owns what. So this company, how did it earn these millions or whatever amount of money. Secondly, you are still the owner. Your wife is the director. And so you need to convince the people that they want that bid on how that they're the best that can do that work. That's essence of public procurement rules. So I think he should be suspended and investigated. And again, if you remember that he used to be the chairman of NDDC and all the issues about off the mic, look, the media can craft a branding. The former IG of police was one of the best IG when Obasanjo asked the FCC to handcuff him, arrest him. It's not about their politics. It's not about what you are doing well. Yes, you may be doing well. It's about the fact that we need to show examples and therefore create deterrence so that public office is not for personal enrichment.
In fact,
people fairly for that.
In fact, even the law, I took a look at even Code of Conduct Bureau, Code of Conduct Practices, and all of that. Even as a public servant or I think the only thing you can engage in no private business. Then you mustn't also bring in your cohorts around you to get at the expense of the state. And I think the only thing you are even allowed to do is farming, as it were. So,
and there should be disclosures. You disclose them so people know that. Look, and again, if they show, this one is their colleague in the cabinet, and these things are awarded without procurement process. So I think that what we are seeing now is that EFCC has a work to do now, to go after everybody. And I say so. This can be a defining moment for the president. This can be an inflection point.
Okay.
I think that the president needs to sack many people, including the people with him in that villa. That people, if you want to deliver for Nigeria, he has to really do that quick.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I know we can go on and on because there are so many issues to take a look at, but thank you very much for joining me this morning. At least we're able to look at the substance of it beyond some of the, it's not just about, sometimes it's not just about, what do they call it, sound bites, as it were. Thank you very much, Doctor, for joining us.